All right, let's talk about monetization. So monetization takes a couple of different game design disciplines into account. It's going to talk a little bit about economy, a little bit about balance, and then also it brings in aspects of like business development, so biz dev we call that, and also ethics. So what is monetization? We can talk about this a little bit on Discord, but you can tell me a little bit about what you think monetization is, and how monetization exists in the games that you've played. You can talk about the kinds of monetization that exist in games and the pricing in general, like pricing schemes that exist. So some examples that I can think of, there are expansions and DLC. So this is when you buy the base game and then you buy some additional content at a later time. It could be collector's editions or seasons passes. So this is when you buy a big bundle of content all at once, or you get a pass that enables you to get content as it comes out. So seasons passes are very like a common monetization model for games that have ongoing content. Something like Fortnite, where it actually has seasons where there's new content that's dropped every month or whatever it is. You get a pass that lasts for a certain number of months so that you get all of that as it comes out. There are loot boxes, which are, as I'm sure many of you know, very contested as a method of monetization and do run up against ethics considerations. But this is when you get some, something that you pay for in game with real money, and it will provide you a random item or a random something in the game, but you don't know what it's going to be before you buy it. Gacha games do this as well. There are in-app purchases and microtransactions. This is a very common monetization technique for mobile games. So this is where you get a base game, and maybe that game is free, or maybe it costs a couple of dollars, but then the game is constantly trying to upsell you to buy more things, or to buy like things that don't cost very much money, usually just $1 or $2, but then are going to help you in the game. Sometimes you're straight up buying soft currency. Sometimes you're buying items. There could be subscriptions. So FF14 or WoW, which have an MMO model, use a subscription. So you pay for the base game, and then month to month you pay to be able to continue playing. And then there are other things like ads. So a game could be free but serve you ads every now and then, and the ad maker is what actually pays the game, like pays for the game, but you have to watch the ads in order for them to make the money on that. And there are others. You could even just have, the most basic version of monetization is just to have like the premium game model, which is where you just buy the base game, and that's it. That's all you ever buy. So you can watch another video here about monetization, but in general, asking, is it easy to put monetization into a game? Well, no, as we've just kind of described, it's the synthesis of a lot of different disciplines. And in fact, at large game companies, monetization and economy are their own game design roles. Like, they're a huge job. It's a huge amount of effort to decide how you think your audience is going to spend money, and to implement that, and then to be able to monitor it and like look at data and analytics, analyze that, and then change your game to suit. It's a very different approach to design, and there are whole careers just for economy designers, which often include relationships with real currency or hard currency. So if you recall our 7 persuasive techniques, reduction, tunneling, tailoring, suggestion, self-monitoring, surveillance, and conditioning, we can look at how these techniques are applied to persuade people to spend money. So the lens of monetization. So we can look at reduction. This is a simplification of player tasks, as you recall. In our monetization example, we want to make sure that the path to purchasing is very easy with no unnecessary clicks. So in Pokemon Go, which is an example that we're going to be using kind of throughout the lecture today, you can go to a shop page, which is very easy to find. Everything that you can buy with soft currency is on that page, and if you scroll down, all of the options for buying soft currency with hard currency is also grouped together. It's in one single place. There are no additional clicks to get there. And if you have it set up on your phone, you can do this with like touching the fingerprint button. You don't even have to like input a credit card or anything like that. Tunneling. This is when the player is guided to a particular path. So as a monetization example, you can have feature deals or items that you want players to convert, which means to spend money on, prominently near the top of your shop page. You can, as a bonus, make it seem like a limited sale. So these items that are available in Pokemon Go are packages of several items together. They cost a set number of soft currency, which again, you can buy with real money. And they always say limited time only, even though the packages do change from time to time, but it's not that limited. Like they're always there and they're always fairly similar. So putting this right at the top of the page, this is the first thing that you see when you enter the shop page, means that more people are going to be motivated and like kind of upsold to buy these packages instead of buying the individual items, which are cheaper. But this gives you like a discount. It might give you some things you want, some things you don't want, but you spent more money on it, and that's what matters. Tailoring. So this provides direct behavior changing instructions to force a player to change action. Our monetization example for this is if a player tries to perform an action that's blocked by not having a resource that they must buy with soft currency or hard currency, provide an overlay explaining that they can purchase it immediately. So when you do a raid in Pokemon Go and you don't have the raid pass that you need to actually enter that raid, so when you go to a gym, like in the real world, you're with your friends, you go to a gym, you want to like fight in the gym, fight a raid boss, and you don't have a raid pass, it will give you a pop-up that says you don't have any raid passes, do you want to buy one now? And there's a button, like a buy button right there, or a go to shop button. So that is like immediately telling you what's blocking you and immediately giving you a path, using real money that's going to allow you to do that action that you want to do. Suggestion. This is teaching the player to change their action by designing in-game learning. So as an example from Candy Crush, if a player can't be persuaded to spend money, so this is a player that's not converting on spending money, you can incentivize them by having them watch an ad instead, so that you're still generating revenue and you're offering rewards to play. So if they're running out of lives and you know that they still want to play, you can serve them an ad and say, okay, well, watch the video ad to unlock a bonus spin. And over time, that will teach them that this is a thing that they can do. That's going to enable them to keep playing. And then I think the hope is that at some point they're going to get tired of watching ads and they're just going to buy more time. Self-monitoring. So again, players need to see how well they're doing. In our monetization example, every time you catch a Pokemon, you can show them how much soft currency they have and make a big deal when they earn more. So conversely, you don't want to tell them, this is where we run up against ethics, but you don't want to reveal how much real money they've spent. So everything gets presented in soft currency and the real money is obfuscated somewhat. But this shows you very clearly how much XP you got, how much Stardust, how much candy. These are all like soft currencies in the game. Surveillance. Players need to be able to relatively compare themselves. Our monetization example is use leaderboards as social pressure to buy more to get ahead. And as a bonus, make it a contest with prizes, so attach a reward to that. If you get in the top 3 for this leaderboard for this week, then you're going to get a loot box. You're going to get a secret prize. Oh, how good is that, right? But then this kind of example, like, not only sort of gets you on the, I might get some free dopamine, but it also makes it a competition. So if you're playing with your friends, or even if you're playing with strangers, like if you're in 4th place, you got a lot of motivation to try and get up to 3rd, right? Conditioning. Players need to be afforded opportunity to improve their skills through repetition. So in our monetization example, we want to make sure that the game can still be enjoyably played without spending money. So we want players to grind, and we want them to have fun doing it. Not like as much fun as they probably would if they weren't playing a game that was monetized, but we want them to keep coming back to the game every day, right? You want it to be fun enough that they're going to keep playing, because the more time that someone plays, the more likely it is that they'll eventually convert. So you want some of the fun in the game to be based on skill and not chance, so that players feel like they're getting better, and that they're not being gated by needing to spend money, even if you are secretly doing that, which a lot of games do. And so you do need to actually like provide them the path through to improvement. So there are some specific monetization concepts that we can talk about as well, and we have touched on these a little bit at this point, but most of the concepts center around generating or picking on a pain point in the player's experience, something that is frustrating to them, and then offering to relieve it by paying money. I highly recommend that you read this article, as it does go into each of these concepts in quite a bit of detail. And I will say that, like, I don't necessarily agree with all of these concepts as game design concepts. I don't actually think they're all good. I don't think most of them are good. While I do believe in monetizing games, because I think that we should all make money on our craft, I think that there are ways to do it without being quite as manipulative as these are. But one of the things that you should understand, at least as a player, is that there are people who are employed, like there are psychologists who are employed at companies to try and figure out how to best like press those buttons and press those pain points, right? And so having an understanding of what these games are doing are going to make it easier for you to resist that, if that is something that you are wanting to do in your gameplay experience. For me, if I've played a game and I've enjoyed it for a good amount of time, I don't mind giving it some money, but I do ultimately want it to feel like it was my choice and not like I was coerced into it. But anyway, a lot of these concepts do kind of revolve around coercion. So tricking a player into making a purchase with incomplete information or obscured information. This is an example of coercive monetization. So, for example, obscuring the relationship between an action and a cost, or using an intermediate currency, which we saw in Pokemon Go. They have gold coins. They don't tell you, you can calculate for yourself how much money you're actually spending whenever you spend those coins, but the game is not going out of its way to do that for you. That is an example of coercive monetization, because it's hiding that relationship a little bit. It doesn't really want you to know how much you've spent in the game. You can use premium currencies. This is also known as in-game currency or soft currency, used to buy things in the game that you have to purchase to get other items. So when you're giving this like intermediate currency between like spend money, intermediate currency, then get items, that's an example of a premium currency. There are skill versus money games. So success in a monetized game is primarily determined by either player skill or money spent to proceed. So monetization can be about disguising a money game as a skill game, because players vastly prefer a skill game for obvious reasons. So by skill versus money game, what I mean is some games are based entirely on the amount of skill that you put into it. So the example that I've given before is Go or chess, right? That's a skill game. There's not really any randomness there other than what the other player is going to do. And obviously you're not paying money to win in a game like that. A money game, which is what you would find in a casino, is a game where the more money you spend, the better you're going to do. Or maybe the better you're going to do, but it's going to get you to spend more money because it's going to make you think that you're doing better, right? So one of the things that games that rely really heavily on monetization and in-app purchases and that sort of thing, or loot boxes, can be about, is making it seem like you're playing a skill game when after a certain point you are actually playing a money game. You are actually kind of paying to win. You can do reward removal. So if you give players a reward like XP, progress, or items, and then threaten to remove it if they don't spend money, studies have shown that removing a reward is very painful, much more painful than never having been rewarded at all. So this is a thing you could do. You could do this. I think Clash of Clans does this, where they like let you, you know, build up a certain amount for free. But if you don't at some point spend to like actually make your village, then it's going to get taken away from you, or you're not going to be able to progress. I don't really recommend this technique, but there are games that use it to great success that make a lot of money. But I think that their success is entirely based on how much money they make, not necessarily how good their game is, right? You can use progress gates. So you can make a point in the game where you simply must pay to proceed. This can be a hard gate, so you either pay or you stop playing, either forever or for a period of time. Or, well, I guess in a hard gate it would be forever. With a soft gate, you can keep playing eventually, but you have to wait out a timer, or you have to grind more, or you have to do something else in order to like be able to continue to progress. Most games use soft gates, so they do allow you to progress even if you haven't paid any money, but they make it significantly more difficult for you to progress in a meaningful way without paying money. And then you can use soft and hard boosts. So soft boosts are items or power-ups which last forever once you buy them. So in Pokemon Go, you can buy additional storage space for your Pokemon or additional item space. These are examples of soft boosts. They allow you to store more Pokemon, which is going to allow you to collect more types of Pokemon if you're a collector, or be able to store more things for PvP if you're, like more of the killer type, for example. But that power-up lasts forever. Once you use that, it's just part of your character. It's part of your progression, right? A hard boost is a consumable item that you have to keep buying to use. So in Pokemon Go, that would be an incubator is a big one. You use incubators to incubate eggs when you're walking. You get one by default, so you can always walk and be hatching an egg. But if you buy incubators, you could walk and hatch 3 eggs, or 5 eggs, or 10 eggs, or however many you buy, right? So that's but they run out. They only have like 3 uses and then they run out. So that's something that you would have to keep buying if you want to keep experiencing that like rate of progression. So if you get a chance this week, tell me what you think about these techniques. How do they differ from the game balance techniques that we just learned, and how are they the same? Is there a line to be drawn between exploiting a player and making money? I think there is personally, but I'd love to hear from you. Loot boxes and gacha games defy gambling regulations by being not based in real-world money rewards. They're generally not considered to be breaking the law because of that. Do you think that's right? I mean, either opinion is fine, but I'd love to know kind of where you stand on it. And it's definitely an interesting discussion. I should say, I'm not expecting anything in your document that necessarily relates to monetization, but if it's something that you've been thinking about and you think that your game, warrants having an explanation of what maybe hard and soft currencies you're planning on having in your game, you should put that in your document, and I'd love to see it, but it is entirely optional.